Looking for the perfect summer night in Hendersonville? Then make plans for Rhythm and Brews, downtown Hendersonville's free concert series. On the third Thursday of each month from June through October, South Main Street comes alive with live music, local craft beer, cider and wine, food trucks, and family-friendly fun. Bring your lawn chair, grab some friends, and enjoy an unforgettable evening in the heart of downtown. Rhythm and Brews, where great music and great community come together. We are recording.
All right. Am I audible?
You are audible.
Okay.
Peter Howitt, you are my first Nobel Prize-winning guest on the podcast, and also my first Canadian.
Oh.
So,
wow.
Congratulations on those two accomplishments.
Thank you.
Which one do you value more? Do you value the Nobel Prize more than being Canadian?
Well, I suppose I do. I value them both.
Yeah.
I am now Canadian and American. I'm a dual citizen.
Congratulations.
And I'm happy to be that way. I think I'm probably more of a universalist than a nationalist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I am half Canadian.
Oh, really?
My mother's French Canadian. She was French Canadian, and we can trace our lineage back to Quebec. So I know you're from Guelph, Ontario.
That's right.
I know sometimes people in Ontario don't consider Quebec to be in Canada, but
oh well, it is. It's and the French language is an official language of Canada. It's not like Spanish is here, spoken by a lot of people, but not official. Every public document in Canada is written in both languages. Every prime minister since, I don't know who, probably back in the 1950s, has been fairly fluent in both English and French.
Yeah.
The proceedings in Parliament are conducted in both languages. Quebec has a very good position for a French-speaking state or province in a whole sea of English-speaking people of 300-400 million of us, and there are only about 15 million. So I think they're thriving.
Yeah.
They always want more, but there's been a long separatist movement in Canada, which has resulted in referenda to separate, some of which were very close, but it's never quite succeeded.
Yeah.
There may be more, but I think the province that's more likely to secede right now is Alberta.
Very conservative province, isn't it?
It's very conservative. It's sort of the Texas of Canada.
Yeah.
It's very much, the economy is very much based on oil.
Yeah.
And so they're sort of fighting the modern, climate change movement and so on.
Yeah.
Just as the oil interests are in the United States and around the world.
Yeah.
But the rest of the country is concerned about it, and so there's tension there.
Yeah. My father's work brought my family to Canada in the 80s, so we lived in Montreal for a couple of years. And as I said, my mother's side of the family was French-Canadian, so we kind of returned to our roots. But the 80s were kind of an interesting time in Montreal. I know that the separatist movement had been in effect and had been gaining some steam, and Montreal had just gotten surpassed by Toronto as the major city in Canada. And I think there was, and there probably still is to this day, a great effort to preserve the culture of Quebec and certainly the French language, to the point where, stop signs say arrête instead of stop. Even in France, they say stop.
That's right.
Yeah, it's an interesting culture, an interesting place.
It is. I went to school in Montreal.
McGill.
At McGill.
Yeah.
At the time, it was a sort of a English-speaking island in a French-speaking sea.
Yeah.
Although Westmount was still a big center of where a lot of the Anglophones lived.
Yeah.
It's now as much Francophone as Anglophone.
Yeah.
And during that period, a lot of the people that were really upset by separatism left. There was a big migration, largely to the Toronto area.
Right.
And as a result, I think a lot of the Anglophones that remained were more comfortable with the movement to preserve the French language.
Yeah.
The fact that the letters of the English part of a shop sign could only be so many inches tall.
Right.
And, it did seem a little extreme, but there's, I think, a lot of understanding that it took extreme measures to preserve the French culture in North America.
Yeah.
So I think it's working out pretty well. It's a lot of people are very proud that England and France are two countries that for most of their history have been at war. And here we've had the English and French getting along for longer than they ever have without actually having a war.
That's very true. That's very true. When I lived in Montreal and when we returned to the United States, I felt like there was, in Montreal, the kids could tell you the capital of every 50 U.S. state. But you get to the United States and kids here don't know anything about Canada. It's kind of cloaked in mystery. And I think that there's kind of this misconception that it's just an extension of the United States, but different. And I think Canada has a better sense of self than Americans, give them credit for. What do you think about all this talk about Canada becoming a 51st state?
Well, like most Canadians, I find it offensive.
Yeah.
But, it's it's interesting that I have a lot of friends who express a lot of sympathy with me when they hear. I mean, it's mainly from Trump. It's not really from anybody else. It's just personal insult.
Yeah.
But you have to take it seriously. The United States is a very powerful country, certainly militarily far more powerful than Canada, and if the U.S. were willing to invade Canada, I'm sure they could do so successfully. But they'd have to put a lot of boots on the ground because it's a very big country.
Very big country.
So I doubt if it's ever going to come to that. But it's just part of the hostility that Canada has experienced with, let's face it, it's with Trump. It's not with the United States. But the United States elected him. Who knows who they're going to elect next? Canada has had to start making alternative arrangements and looking for trading partners elsewhere in the world. But the fact that most Americans don't know a lot about Canada, to me, it's not surprising. I mean, I expect if I'd grown up in the U.S., I wouldn't know much about Canada. It's everybody in Canada knows a lot about the U.S. Everybody in the world knows a lot about the U.S.
True.
It's the most powerful country in the world. It has been throughout my lifetime. So of course, the relationship is always going to be very asymmetric in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, most Americans don't know much about North Dakota, so I guess it's no surprise that if you go a little bit farther, they know even less about that.
Yeah.
I do know that Canada was trying to annex the Turks and Caicos at one point. Did you?
Well, there was a discussion about that. There were a couple of members of Parliament that used to like to take winter vacations, and is it Providenciales?
Yeah.
And they actually, I'm not sure how serious it was. But
Yeah.
they made a proposal that in Parliament that
Yeah.
that we enter into a political union with Turks
Yeah.
and Caicos.
I spent a lot of time in the Turks and Caicos in my
Oh.
past life in the scuba industry.
Oh, really?
And wonderful islands, beautiful islands.
Yeah, I once spent a winter vacation there,
Yeah.
and loved it.
Yeah, and if you spend a winter in Canada, you know why there would be interest in
Yes,
annexing the Turks and
exactly.
Caicos. So, but of course, this is not why I had you on the podcast, Peter. So, it's my understanding that you had no idea that you would be winning this prestigious Nobel Prize for economics.
Well, I guess no idea isn't quite accurate. The work for which I was recognized was done a long time ago. Most of it was.
Late 80s, early 90s.
We
right?
started work. It was all done with Philippe Aghion, my French economist co-author and collaborator. We started in 1987. And the most important work of all of the work we've done was done then. And that's the basis of the work for which we got the prize. But we continued it. He's still working on it.
Wow.
Actually, it's still working on developments of the same ideas. I've sort of phased myself out. I just celebrated my 80th birthday.
Happy birthday, Peter.
Thank you. I realize that octogenarians don't make a lot of contributions of a fundamental nature to the subject, and so I'm more interested in golf right now. But anyway, when I did that work, I was already 41. I was an established economist, and it was a new direction that I was moving in. We came up with an idea that turned out to be extremely fruitful, and we recognized right away that it was successful because when we went around individually or jointly to present the first paper that we had written together, we got a very favorable reception everywhere we went, and after a few years, we wrote a couple of books. We wrote many more papers. We undertook a lot of research projects to testing parts of our theory and so on. A lot of people said, "Well, you're going to win the Nobel Prize for this." So, and this was years ago. But after people have been telling you, "Oh, I think you're going to win the prize this year" for 25 years, and it hasn't happened,
Yeah.
you reconcile yourself to the fact that there are people who live happy, fulfilling lives without a Nobel Prize. It's not a big deal, and I'm quite aware of a lot of people who spent the latter part of their lives very unhappily because they kept waiting every October with the refrigerator stocked with champagne for the announcement that never came, and many of them became very bitter about it. So I was quite determined to forget about this. The night before the prize was announced last year, I had been up. I knew that the announcement was coming the next morning, and I was pretty sure that it wasn't going to be us. I mean, I'd sort of decided, okay, that ship has sailed. And especially because the year before they gave the prize to Daron Acemoglu, a good friend of mine who's did similar work, and I thought, well, they're not going to do it 2 years in a row, especially. So I've been up watching the Toronto Blue Jays beat the New York Yankees in the World Series playoffs. And it was late when I went to bed. My phone had run out of juice from scrolling between innings. And rather than disturb my wife's sleep, I just put the phone down. I knew it was out of juice. That was it. So at 6:15 in the morning, my wife's phone started to ring, and she was very annoyed about it. And I said, well, just answer it. Anyway, so she did, and it was a very enterprising Swedish journalist who'd somehow or other found her number.
Wow.
And said, hello, I've called to congratulate Peter Howitt, I'm winning the Nobel Prize in economics. What? So that's what happened. This journalist finally contacted us. The rest of the world had been informed already of it.
Yeah, journalists always find a way, don't they?
Well, this one certainly did. Yeah. So it was a big surprise, but it wasn't totally out of the blue.
Yeah, you had an inkling, but
I had an inkling in the past,
yeah.
and I had pretty much given up hope for it.
Yeah. So the premise is creative destruction.
Right.
And the concept is things become obsolete, new technologies replace those old technologies, and it's a driving force in our economy. Is that a... Hi, this is Nick Lucy, host of the Kudzu Project podcast. I wanted to thank you for listening and also remind you that the Kudzu Project is brought to you by the Lucy Agency. The Lucy Agency is a full-service marketing firm based here in Hendersonville, North Carolina. We can handle all of your marketing needs, from website design and development to social media management to graphic design, photography, videography, you name it, we can help you do it. So thank you, and let's get right back to the show.
That's right. Yeah. And it's actually an old idea, but it was an idea that didn't fit well with existing economic theory and economic models. So, someone said that economists are like a drunk looking for his lost car keys under a lamppost. And, when somebody said, "Well, is this where you dropped them?" And he said, "No, but the light's pretty good here." and that's it. When economists have good models that they know that they can take to the data and measure things, that's what they go with.
Right.
And none of those models included these sort of strategic considerations that are so important in the contest between people that are deploying the old technologies and making a profit from the old technologies and would like things to either stay the same or continue along the same lines, and the people, the more disruptive upstarts bringing the new ideas that are going to push things in a totally different direction to the detriment of the people whose products aren't going to be in demand as much, whose plants are maybe going to have to close, they're going to maybe have to lay off workers, and there are a lot of people whose human capital will be rendered redundant by the new technologies. And so there's this as I say, a strategic relationship that it goes even beyond the economics. It goes into politics. We see this all the time. We see people lobbying governments. We see people trying to pressure regulatory agencies and so on to tilt things in favor of the status quo and make it difficult for newcomers to come in with new ideas. I mean, we see that all the time with with new energy sources right now. For example, I was recently reading about how in Australia, if you want to get solar panels on your roof or anywhere else, it's just very easy. It's like getting a new garage door or something. But in most places in the U.S., you've got to go through a lot of regulatory hoops to do it. There are a lot of new clean energy technologies that are basically ruled out by state regulations. There are a lot of laws, especially tax laws, that favor the fossil fuel industry. And this is, the result of the conflict that's created by creative destruction. We know that clean energy now is by far the least expensive way to produce electric power in almost anywhere in the world right now. And yet there are all sorts of policies in place in some countries that promote this, and others in other countries that try to oppose it. And a lot of the dark money in American politics is coming from the fossil fuel industry that is helping to oppose this. That's an example of creative destruction. That's just the way the world works. And so what we've been trying to do in this research project that we started in 1987 was to try to measure the way this impinges on different factors that affect economic growth, like competition, environmental policy, education, international trade, intellectual property protection, you name it. There are all sorts of things that ultimately affect this conflict between the new and the old. And as I say, it's not a new idea. The term creative destruction was coined by Joseph Schumpeter in 1942 in a book called Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. Schumpeter was he was born in Austria. He had a distinguished career in Austria. At one point, he was a finance minister. Apparently not a very successful one, but he ended up at Harvard and spent several decades as one of the leading economics professors at Harvard. And it's a wonderful book, this Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. It's as much a book about politics and sociology as it is about economics. And he pointed out that economic growth is a result of this continual sort of storm of innovations that bring all sorts of new ideas, but leave all this wreckage in its wake of bankruptcies and unemployment and foreclosures and that this is a central part of economic growth. It was just too hard to model. And when I was a graduate student, we learned about it, but just as a kind of a curiosity. And when people actually started to do empirical work or theoretical work on economic growth, they used models in which technological progress just sort of comes automatically and benefits everybody uniformly, just raises everybody's wages and everybody's incomes.
Right.
And we know it doesn't. And neither of those is true. It's not automatic.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is that you need continual research and development to keep the growth process going. And every once in a while, you need some really radical changes, because if you keep technological progress growing along certain lines that have been defined by major innovations in the past, you run into diminishing returns. Eventually, you sort of exploit that old technological base as much as you can, and you may have done very well, but you stop growing.
Right.
To continue growing, you need this renewal. You need this continual disruption. You need things to be shaken up all the time.
Yeah. I wish backup alarms became obsolete. Sorry about that. This is why it's the loudest podcast studio in Hendersonville. So it's a concept that had existed. In fact, didn't Karl Marx write about it at some point in some iteration?
Karl Marx believed that technology was important, and I'm not a student of Marx, right. But people who are students of Marx have told me that yes, there's a lot of foreshadowing of that.
Yeah.
das Kapital.
But you gave creative destruction a mathematical support.
Yeah, I like to think that what we did was to make Schumpeter's ideas operational. We found a way that you could create models that people could look at, and as long as they could understand the mathematics, they could understand it. They could see how you could develop these ideas further. You could find a way to go and test the ideas, to measure the importance of different effects on economic growth. You need a way. The data don't speak for themselves. You've got to organize them. You've got to have a framework for doing that. It's got to be sort of logical and ambiguous, and that's kind of what we created.
Yeah. So new technology, new industry is built on the rubble of the old industry. It gets rolled into this new economy.
Yes, and as I said, it's as much a political problem as an economic problem. It has to be managed.
Yeah. And
how a society manages this conflict between the winners and the losers from new technologies goes a long way to explaining how successful the economic system is going to be in continuing to grow. There are places where the status quo, the entrenched incumbents, have pretty much managed to block technological progress. Countries like Argentina, which a little more than 100 years ago was one of the richest countries in the world. People often used to compare them very much to Canada. They're similar sort of European population basis, sort of full of natural resources, just a lot of economic potential. And Canada and Argentina went different ways, and to a large extent what happened in Canada was that in Argentina was that it became very protectionist. They developed policies, especially under Perón, that favored sort of national champions in different sectors and protected them against international competition, which meant that they didn't have to worry too much about being the victims of creative destruction. And they could continue to innovate if they like, but you didn't get the kind of disruptive new technological movements, or if you did, they were very much regulated and constrained and prevented from really developing as much as they could have. Whereas in other countries, they've been much more open to it. You experience more growth. And that's not to say that you should always just let these forces rip, because there is a serious trade-off here. You have to trade off. I mean, people's lives are really upended by a lot of new technologies, and that's a legitimate concern, obviously. Yeah. I mean, and if from any reasonable philosophical perspective, if you're trying to think of what's best for society, you've got to trade off the possibility of new benefits for not only ourselves but future generations that would come from new technologies, against the pain and the disruption and the anxiety that it can create for people that aren't going to directly benefit from it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy choice. But there are ways to mitigate that trade-off. There are ways to make it a lot easier. Philippe and I are often referred to the Danish system. It's called flex security, in which if workers that are laid off because firms have adopted new technologies that are going to be labor replacing, are offered by the state 90% of their former salary for up to 2 years, provided that they undergo training to become employable again, maybe with working with some new technology. And at the same, and it's called flex security, because the flex part is that in most European countries, it's very difficult for firms to lay workers off. They have to pay huge severance payments. It's made very difficult.
Very union focused in Europe.
Yeah, and that makes it difficult for firms to adopt new technologies that might require them to lay some workers off. In Denmark, there are no restrictions on firms. They can do what they want, but the workers are taken care of by the state. Now, I don't know a lot about this system and exactly how it works. It sounds very expensive to me.
Yeah.
But they've had it going for many years, and they're not going broke. And when people do surveys of the public attitude towards new technologies and so on, the Danes are among the least worried about artificial intelligence or anything like that. They're ready to embrace the new technology. They don't suffer the kind of anxiety that we see in many other countries. We see it all over the U.S. right now. So many young people worried about what their prospects are going to be with artificial intelligence, and rightfully so.
Yeah, we don't have that safety net.
But we don't have that safety net, and I think that that's really important. That really alleviates this trade-off to a large extent.
Yeah.
You can adopt the new technologies, and it's not going to cause as much pain and suffering that way as it otherwise would.
Yeah. So that brings me to my next question. How does artificial intelligence fit into creative destruction?
Well, it's very much an example of creative destruction. Yeah. It's a new disruptive technology. It's what we would call a general purpose technology. It's one of those technologies like the steam engine or electrification or the computer or
it's far-reaching.
Everything in the second industrial revolution, the internal combustion engine, something that is just changing the way we do things and the way we live throughout the whole system, not just in one or two little niches.
Yeah.
And we've had some experience with technologies like that I think are instructive. We know that they take a long time to work their way out and for us to realize just what the impact is going to be. We know that they can be very disruptive. You can see right away there are certain jobs and occupations that are going to be rendered obsolete. What you don't see at first, and what always seems to happen eventually, is that all sorts of new jobs are going to be created by these new technologies. And it's going to make, in the end, it's going to make life much nicer for a lot of people. Indeed, for almost everyone. I mean, the invention of the power loom in the early part of the Industrial Revolution was absolutely devastating for handloom weavers, who were highly skilled craftspeople who had, many of them honed their crafts over decades, and they were fairly wealthy people who were upstanding members of their societies, and they were just, rendered penniless. There was just no room for them after this. But of course, nowadays, I mean, who among us would be better off if the power loom had never been invented? I mean, no, it's just one step along the way of making us all, the average person today, because of technological progress, is probably just as well off as the richest person was in 1820. In fact, about the richest person in the 1820s in Europe was Nathan Rothschild, a banker who died in his 60s, a miserable, painful death from some abscess in his back. Medical technology was just, it was laughable compared to now, except it wasn't a joke. It was, they put leeches on him. They did all sorts of crazy things that probably made it even worse. And he died an awful, painful death. Just the fact that nobody now is going to have to go through that. I mean, there are other things that have come up as well. But, and if we need an operation, we have things called anesthetics. I mean, these things make a lot of difference to the quality, to the material well-being of people, and they're the result of technological progress. Sometimes I ask people, okay, so put yourself back 150 years in North America, when about 50% of the population had to work on the farm, doing very difficult work, long hours, just to feed everybody. Well, technology has destroyed most of those jobs. We now get by with a little more than 1% of the population producing enough to feed us and a lot of other people in the world too.
Very true.
And so what's happened to those people? Their jobs have been destroyed by technology. If you'd asked somebody in 1875, what are these people going to do? They wouldn't know. I mean, and you could tell them, well, they could be podcasters. They could, be auto mechanics. They could be producing telephones. They could be movie directors. There are all sorts of things that technology has opened up. Jobs that are, for most people, much more rewarding and enjoyable and pleasant than the jobs that were destroyed by that technology. Yeah. But at the time, I think a lot of those jobs, though, that were basically labor-saving inventions in agriculture, were very disruptive for people. This is an aspect of economic growth that I see everywhere now, and of course artificial intelligence just makes it even more obvious. You look out there and you don't have to have much experience with ChatGPT to start asking yourself, is there anything that it can't do?
Yeah.
There's no theorem in economics that proves that ultimately technology is always going to provide new jobs and keep people's wages growing with the rest of the economy. So far it has. And we can certainly specify economic models and tell you under what conditions that will happen. But they're basically sort of artificial assumptions that we have to make to get that as a theory. But it's happened so far, and I think it's going to continue to happen. Human ingenuity keeps coming up with new things that we could be enjoying that nobody would have thought of before. And that opens up new possibilities for people to provide those things.
Yeah. I always say when you're going through something difficult in life, you always get to the point where you look back on that point and laugh.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? So we're going to get to a point where we look back at this and laugh as...
I expect we will. Yeah. But I worry that a lot of people hear that message and they think, okay, well, so we'll just let it rip. We won't worry about it. Everything will be fine. Well, no, it's not the case. I mean, there are people that are really going to go through a lot of suffering, and which we can make easier by policies. And we have to worry. We have to worry also about how the wealth that's created by artificial intelligence is going to be shared. It has a potential for creating a huge amount of wealth, but also for concentrating that in a small number of hands. And I don't think that's just. I think there are ways of continuing to incentivize new innovations without letting the inventors capture all of the benefits.
Interesting. So now we're kind of getting into politics in a way.
Yeah.
Some say that politics is downstream of culture. Economics is downstream of culture too, in a way, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Some would argue that there was wealth redistribution during COVID. Are you saying that there could be some kind of wealth redistribution in the AI era?
Yeah, very much. I mean, if you take a look at how the concentration of wealth has changed over the last 15 years, it's been enormous.
Yeah.
It's been an enormous increase, and the people that have really benefited are people in the high tech industries, people that are very much at the forefront of the AI movement.
Yeah.
Now, of course, a lot of that wealth is in the form of, equity ownership of companies that could collapse in an instant if we have a stock market crash.
Like the .com boom and bust.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like that. I mean, most big technological movements with general purpose technologies like the railroads and the computer and the .com was as much a telecom thing as it was a computer thing. Most of those movements have been associated with what people at the time thought of as bubbles.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the stock market is just built on imagination. There's some real fundamental productivity potential there. But the thing is that nobody knows exactly how that's going to work its way out.
Yeah.
And so people are placing bets on a lot of different possibilities, some of which will work out, many of which probably won't.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in the .com bubble. A lot of companies went bust.
Yeah.
But out of this emerged companies like Amazon. I'm sure you remember too, at a time when everybody was laughing at how, it's Amazon. It's just this little company that's never made a profit. All they do is sell books, and they're valued more than General Motors. I mean, how does this make sense?
Yeah. They were just positioning themselves that whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some companies that emerge like the Amazons out of this, I expect.
Yeah. But for every Amazon, there's 10 companies that are relying on pixie dust and,
Yeah. But it isn't obvious at first just which ones are going to work. And even now, we don't know which ways artificial intelligence is going to go. I mean, the things that we're familiar with, Claude and ChatGPT and the like, they're built on these large language models, which are, it's kind of autocomplete on steroids.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who think that it should go in a different direction. There's a man named Yann LeCun who was the head of technology for Meta, Facebook company. That he's left and gone to Europe to start up a new artificial intelligence venture based on a completely different fundamental structure for how you develop and train these models that is more based on trying to get the computer to learn about how things work rather than just to read a lot of text and see what follows when people usually say, well, the best way to wash your car is,
Right.
Which is sort of what we've got right now.
Yeah.
And we don't know whether these very big general purpose models that we've got, like ChatGPT and the like, whether that's going to be the future, or how much of it is going to be, or if it's going to be the more modular ones, like the Chinese. They developed this DeepSeek technology, which really sort of compartmentalized the development of their AI models. So, if you want one that's going to help you understand some mathematics, it's completely different than the one that would help you understand, how to take care of your household products or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's much more economical. And a couple of years ago, they really shocked all of the American technology leaders by coming up with something which is publicly available, which is just as powerful by many measures as the best American AI products. And it's open source. It's not proprietary, so anybody can improve it or contribute to it. We don't know which way that's going to go. And we don't know what the effects are going to be. We don't know what the new jobs and professions are that are going to be created by it. We don't know exactly which jobs are going to be most at risk and which ones aren't. One of the things I like to tell students to remind them about is how electrification of manufacturing started in the last third of the 19th century. And it was very popular, and it did improve productivity. But at first, what companies did was to just get an electrical motor and sort of unhook the water mill or the steam engine or whatever it was that was providing the power in their plant, and replace that with the electric motor. But they didn't redesign the factory. The factories were largely sort of vertical structures that with a big shaft that would, transmit the power from the single power source up to the higher floors. It turns out that what you could do with the electrical motor was you could do way better than that, because you could distribute the power in a way that you couldn't with a water mill or something, and you could do it horizontally, and you could create an assembly line. And that's what allowed Henry Ford to, allow people to earn $5 a day. Nobody had ever heard of that in 1914. People without any particular skills other than enough agility to keep the assembly line going. And he made a fortune out of this thing. And that revolutionized the way manufacturing was done, the way the plants were organized, the way the workflow was organized. We're going to have some changes like that. But think of that. I mean, that went from 1875 or so, when electrification started, till 1914, about 40 years it took for that potential of electrification to be realized. It's not obvious at first.
Yeah.
And so we're really faced with a lot of uncertainty right now. We don't know which way this is going.
Yeah. In talking to people, particularly young people, there is a pushback against artificial intelligence, and also, to a certain extent, data centers, especially among politicians running for office, saying that we're going to keep data centers out of our town. Is that fear, is that pushback, in your opinion, based completely on fear, or is there some politics involved in that? Is there something bigger to that question?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's anything bigger than that. I think that what happens, to a large extent, what people are worried about is that the data centers are going to make the cost of electricity a lot higher because they consume so much. Now that can't be all of it, because a lot of data centers come with their own generators, and they're producing their own power. But I guess they're not very attractive either, and so there's this. It's just like there's a reaction against wind turbines, for example, because a lot of people just don't like to look at them. And they don't like to listen to them whirring around in the countryside.
Well, it seems to a lot of people much ado about nothing. These huge turbines that are producing so little energy. But I see an outcry against data centers and AI, and it almost, in one hand, you have a society that's embracing AI. You see remnants of AI everywhere, and you read letters from people that are clearly written by AI, yet there's this pushback against it. And it's interesting to me how
a lot of it, I think, is job related.
Yeah.
People are worried about their jobs. They're worried about the fact that they're working for companies where they're told you've got to incorporate AI, and because AI is allowing you to do a lot of things faster, we're expecting a lot more output from you. And people are just feeling pressure from that, and it's certainly among young people. I mean, I've gone around to a lot of universities giving talks in the last few months, and young people are all quite scared about it. But ultimately, it's going to open up all sorts of possibilities for people, and even for people who are students now. I mean, they'll go through a bumpy period.
Yeah. It's impossible to put the genie back in the bottle, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's easy enough for me to say. I mean, I've done my work. I don't have to worry about being replaced by anything. But we all got to where we are on a bumpy road.
Yeah.
And for many of us, if you tried to smooth that road out too much, it wouldn't go as far.
Yeah.
And I try to be optimistic with students, because I think they need to see that.
Yeah.
And as you say, I mean, at some point, I think they're going to go back and say, we were worried about that. And it's easy to get used to a new technology and forget how much harder it used to be to do something than it is now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think we're on a good path. I wish there was more concern. There was a better political environment for harnessing the possibilities of AI here, rather than just let it run its course. But I'm optimistic.
Yeah. So digital photography is often cited as an example of creative destruction, and what digital photography did to the photography industry, and did to Kodak in particular. Right. But I also see young people today embrace, there's kids today that are shooting with film. There are kids listening to vinyl records.
Right.
It seems like everything that's old is new again in a way. And probably because they didn't grow up with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are all these sort of retro things that people like, but the vinyl disc industry isn't anything like what it used to
Sure.
be. It's not going to bring it back.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's still the case that new patents are being issued for the manufacture of horseshoes. So,
Yeah.
So the automobile didn't destroy blacksmiths' jobs or whatever.
Right.
But it just sort of put it in a different place.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about digital photography from my point of view was that it was actually invented by Eastman Kodak. And they looked at this and they made a what was probably a rational decision. They've already got all of this capital invested and very profitably in a business that was dominant throughout the world in producing, not just the film, but the cameras that used them and all of the photographic equipment. And if they were to really push this new way of doing things, it would render a lot of that obsolete.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why there's a lot of conflict between the old and the new. It's because someone that's invested a lot in the old capital has a lot less interest in pushing a new idea, even if it's their own idea. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of businesses have learned from the experience of companies like Eastman Kodak that at some point, when you see a really revolutionary technology, you got to realize, okay, we got to bite the bullet. We've got to do this to ourselves before somebody else does it to us. And one thing that really impresses me about the financing of all this AI investment that's taking place right now is how so much of it is being financed by companies like Microsoft and Google. These are companies that have a lot to lose from artificial intelligence, and yet they're finding ways to invest in it. And it's difficult for them to do that because you get a whole corporate culture that's built around promoting a certain technology. And I've talked actually to people who worked with Eastman Kodak at the time when digital photography came in, and heard them talking about the arguments that would take place inside the company as to, who's going to get rights to market this digital photography. I mean, I've already got the rights to sell it all to Sears and so on and so forth. And it just started these fights that were totally counterproductive. They have found a way to the Googles and Microsofts and Amazons to finance a lot of this development in independent entities that aren't really influenced by the corporate culture of their existing search engines or whatever they're pushing. That's going to be revolutionized by artificial intelligence. They're also trying to develop their own artificial intelligence models. They're probably not going to be as successful. I would just guess, I've tried using Gemini, for example, that Google's been pushing, and it's resulted in some really embarrassing mistakes. I get all these invitations to come in since I won the prize to go and give talks, and I've hired an agent to deal with a lot of them, but I've got to deal with a lot of them myself. And at one point, I got Gemini to answer a lot of them, give up sort of a polite, respectful refusal for some invitations. And it ended up sending into a lot of my fellow golfers at Champion Hills.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, it's okay. They just thought it was funny, But
That's awesome.
But
and I'm glad I didn't get the Jim and I rejection letter for coming on the podcast. So
no, okay.
Thank you.
Well, I love Hendersonville. I love being here in North Carolina, and your podcast sounded really kind of interesting about the varied experiences of people that live here, and I know mine is quite different, I'm sure, but.
Well, everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
And there are some great stories in this town.
Yeah.
My wife and I moved here a little over 2.5 years ago from Colorado. And, it just seems like there are so many unique, diverse people that just settled in this area, yourself included, and everybody's got a story to tell. And then, folklore and stories are kind of interwoven in the culture of Appalachia as well. So, just trying to, bring some of those stories out. So how did you wind up in the Hendersonville area, may I ask?
I retired from full-time teaching in 2013. I was at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. And, coming from Canada, my wife and I thought, okay, let's get as far from the snow as we can. So we bought a place. We'd already had a vacation home in Naples, Florida, and we decided, okay, well, let's go down there and build a bigger place down there and make that our full-time home, which we did and enjoyed it a lot for a while. But it kept getting hotter and hotter. And so after a while, we started spending time in Western North Carolina during the summertime just to get away from the heat. And we liked it more and more, but it was difficult renting places for a long time. We had a dog with us. We wanted our kids to come visit us, and the places that were available one year weren't available the next, and so on. And I had a friend just down the street from me in Naples who was much more systematic than me. He decided he was going to do the same thing. And he came across Champion Hills and came up and spent a whole month up here and came back and told me about it. I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. And so my wife and I made a trip up to Hendersonville. We knew we liked Western North Carolina. We took a look at the golf course there. We loved that.
Beautiful course.
These are really good friends of ours. They told us about how wonderful the people are there, and how great the culture is in Champion Hills, and how easy it is to meet people, and what a nice town Hendersonville is. At first, we were a little skeptical when we came off I-26 and came down. What's it called? Four Seasons Boulevard.
Yeah.
We saw the Bojangles and the KFCs, and we thought, oh, this is it, really? But it didn't take us long to realize, okay, this is a kind of place that we could really enjoy.
Yeah.
Much more low key than Naples, Florida, which at first when we got a place there was a pretty sleepy area.
Yeah.
Not too crowded.
It was one of the fastest growing cities in America in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the time we left there, we lived in a golf course community there as well. And at first it was just a 2-lane dirt road going out to it. So by the time we left, it was a 6-lane, 3 lanes each way, traffic, full of traffic.
Yeah.
And you needed to wait for the light to turn green before you could even make a right turn out of the community. So it had changed, and I loved the nature there, the wildlife, the alligators, the wading birds, everything. It was great. I was really getting into it. But everything else about the place was kind of unnatural. Whereas I came up here and I thought, well, this is even more beautiful, and it's natural. This isn't just here because somebody's leveled out the Everglades.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous place, and enjoyed meeting the people everywhere I went. So, and we're still just loving living in the mountains. And one of the big shocks to us from winning this prize is that it's kind of disrupted our quiet life that we built here in the mountains. And, we're hoping to get back to that, but I've been traveling around the world and giving talks and talking to people on podcasts or whatever, which I enjoy very much. But just looking back to getting back to the sort of the lifestyle that we had 6 months ago or more.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for taking the time to talk to me on this podcast, and congratulations on the Nobel Prize. And it's great to have you as a neighbor here in Hendersonville.
Well, it's great to have you too. I think this is a wonderful idea you got here.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
Okay.
The Kudzu Project is made possible by the Lucy Agency, helping businesses across the South grow deep roots and stand out. Based in Hendersonville, North Carolina, this full-service marketing firm builds handcrafted websites, eye-catching logos, and social media that pops for businesses and organizations. Because if your story's worth telling, it's worth telling right. Learn more at lucyagency.com. That's LUCEY agency.com.
Everyone has a story. And at the Kudzu Project, we want to hear yours. Go to kudzuproject.com and fill out our story submission form. You can write your story for us to read on the podcast, request to be interviewed, or even nominate someone else whose story deserves to be told. The Kudzu Project is all about capturing the voices and spirit of our community, and your story could be the next one we share. Visit kudzuproject.com and tell your story today.
Howdy, listeners. Are you ready to kick off Apple Festival weekend the right way? Lace up those running shoes on Saturday, September 5th for the Apple Festival races, hosted by the Henderson County Chamber of Commerce. Whether you're a hardcore runner or just in it for the fun, there's something for everyone. An 8K, a 5K, and the Mini Moo 1 mile fun run. It all starts in downtown Hendersonville and is a great start to the biggest event of the year, the North Carolina Apple Festival. So grab your friends, bring the family, and come be part of the fun. For more information, visit hendersoncountychamber.org, and we will see you at the starting line.